Hey guys, another edition of Off the Top Rope here off the Mike Sports Network. Not going to do a big long live stream for Dynamite tonight. Dynamite itself was fine. There was some good stuff on this show. Billy Starks had a nice showing against Mercedes Moné, but I will talk about that, about my problems with that. The four-way weird finish aside, some good wrestling. Tony Storm, trying to break commentary in the main event with she's just the best character that they have. It's unbelievable. But we need to talk about that world title match, that street fight between Jon Moxley and Adam Copeland, because I don't know why this match happened. This was the most unnecessary, pointless, reckless, and dangerous match that I have maybe ever seen in the history of professional wrestling, because they literally did this match with no stipulations attached to it. They did this on pay-per-view. They've already determined a number one contender. They did an angle where Jon Moxley, the current world champion, even with a world title match, attached the presumed number one contender. So you basically gave it away, and yet you still did all these crazy spots, including one of the most insane wrestling spots that I've ever seen broadcast on North American television, where Jon Moxley, who's insane, by the way, took a spiked bat known as Spike, which is Adam's Copeland's weapon of choice, took it into his back. It went in there. It could not come out. You could see almost the flesh coming off of it. It was one of the most disgusting things that I have ever seen on any pro wrestling show ever. Why do we need to do that? Why do we need to do that? And what did this prove? Then beyond that, you had all the interference and all the convoluted nature. Wheeler Yuta, all the Death Riders who had been off television in the build to this match that had been written off, they come out. FTR, who hadn't been bothered to care about Cope for months, finally come out and rescue him. And yet, at the end of all this, when Cope just loses, Dax Harwood just walks out on his partner and Cope, one of his best friends. And so we're teasing an FTR heel turn after they've been relegated to Collision and weren't even involved in this. So why did this match happen? This could have very easily, minus the disgusting spot, have happened on the pay-per-view, because that pay-per-view main event was bad. But this was just an overbooked, nonsensical, incoherent mess, just used as an exercise to get you through another week of television with Swerve Strickland off. And you can just, lazily get to Dynasty and the world title match between Jon Moxley and Swerve Strickland. But I just don't get it, man. I don't get how that spike spot was okay. It's just at some point, and I know Jon Moxley's crazy and he probably wanted to do it. And I know there was a story out that he drove 11 hours in bad weather to get to Omaha because he probably knew he wasn't going to drop the title. But he's a crazy motherfucker. Jon Moxley's one of the craziest. He'll do just about anything. But why are we doing this? Jon Moxley also once took skewers to the head, if you guys remember that, and that there was that all-in match that they had, the Stadium Stampede that they did. He's crazy, but dude, that is just, it's indie-rific. It's stuff that doesn't belong on for consumption on North American television. You've got kids in the audience. It was gross. And what did it prove? That Jon Moxley is a tough guy? We already know that. I don't get why AEW consistently has to go to these lengths to pop their audience. It somewhat is their brand, but there are better ways that you can, pop your audience with the spot. Maybe, hey, tell a story. There was no need to have this match between Jon Moxley and Adam Copeland. You could have very easily had this match at the pay-per-view. You didn't have, and also the other part of this, Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian show up with minus Christian Cage to screw over Adam Copeland, even though Adam Copeland wasn't the reason that he lost that match. Jon Moxley forced Christian to pass out, and Christian wanted his world title match and was basically getting questioned by his sons. Yet they're helping Jon Moxley retain the world championship. What? So, you could have done all of this without that bullshit thing that happened with that cash-in. You could have still had that in your back pocket. done a cool match, even though there was a lot of like, like crazy death match spots that happen on that show. This is why less is more. But you don't, they didn't need to go to these lengths to just, do some crazy death match level thing. And then, it doesn't even main event the show, and it's the world championship, which was another, you know, which in hindsight, based off how the show ended, was probably the right decision. But man, I don't understand why this match happened at all. Like like the interference spots didn't make any sense. The death match spot with the spike bat didn't make any sense. It was gross. I still can't get the image of that out of my head. It's going to take me a while. Um, you can praise John Moxley for his toughness, and there is some, but there was no need to do that. There was no need to do that. So again, and I would argue, to be honest with you, yeah, if they would have done this at the pay-per-view, maybe it would have landed differently. And this was the only match that they did, and they didn't do a stream. But the fact that this was a rematch to the worst pay-per-view main event that maybe I've ever seen, this might have been worse because the unnecessary risk that they took and all the interference stuff, it was so predictable with what they did. And the ending was, it was anticlimactic. We knew John Moxley was going to win after what happened on Collision. I talked about it here on this channel. This company does not know the basics of wrestling and storytelling. So they just booked this match because they wanted to say, hey, maybe we'll pop a rating because it's a street fight. And, crazy shit, it gives us an opportunity to do that. And we don't have to tell a story going into Dynasty, even though we got a pay-per-view in a couple weeks. Like, this is not the way to do things. And had you done a better match at the pay-per-view, you wouldn't have had to double down and do this again and then take all these crazy unnecessary risks, overbook it to fuck, and then turn it into this just convoluted mess where now all of a sudden FTR's back in the mix. None of it made any sense. I don't know why this match happened. Honest to God, this is one of the worst examples of what is wrong, or worst or best, depending on, of what is wrong with AEW. Because if this is how you're booking your main event scene, and then you're going from place to place, and you're just, we're not even trying to tell the story with Swerve Strickland and why he's hunting down the world championship. We're still focused on Copeland, even though that happened at the last. You should be using weekly television to tell the story going into the next pay-per-view. Okay? TV time is precious. You didn't need to do this match. You didn't need to do these risks. It was crazy. And yes, some of these spots were fun. And, some of these like table spots and seeing Adam Copeland do crazy shit. Like there was some good stuff in this match, but then you get down to the nuts and bolts of it. All anybody's going to remember is that spike spot. That's all anybody's going to remember. And then the interference points, it's just like, what did it add to the match? It didn't add anything. So, yeah, I just don't get it, man. I don't get it. One of the worst. This was, honest to God, one of the most pointless and inexcusable and unnecessary matches that I've ever seen in all my years of watching professional wrestling for so many different reasons. So thank you, AEW. Just keep going to new lows every single time I watch this show. Admittedly, there was some good stuff on this show, but then there's just this mess, which I have no idea why it happened. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.